Hello, wonderful people, and welcome to my world. We will watch today DW Deutsche Welle DW History and Culture episode, and it's about two genders. Question mark. What history tells us about gender identity? This is for me a quite nice topic because I identify myself as a non-binary person, and I would also say there are more genders because gender identity it's something what is more fluent and what we should be more doing more accessible and not categorizing. Not just doing a category for two genders, for female and male, because some things have no gender. Clothes don't have gender. Even we try to do that and categorize that. But I was going also deeper in this journey of genders. And before colonization happened, we had several different genders. There is, I think, I'm not sure if it's Haiti or other country, or also it could be possible Indonesia or a country in Asia, that they actually have 7 genders. So, and that they also have described them in their language. It's included in their language. So there was, or there are existing genders already over the world, and we have other colonized countries where this genders was erased. So, and then the category just male and female came up. And before that, before colonization, there was more gender in the society. But most likely because of Christianity was destroying the fact that there was more genders in general. And we also have in indigenous folk the two-spirit, where you have these two identities, or where you are fluid in between male and female. And that's why, since I like this topic, I was choosing this documentary from Deutsche Welle to see how the topic gets explained over there. So let's deep dive here, and I would say enjoy watching it, and let's see what we can learn today.
There are only 2 genders, male and female.
How do we affirmatively make the case for trans people having the right to exist?
You know how many genders there were in 2021?
72!
It's a heated debate with hardened battle lines.
Do I look like a male or a female to you? It's a trick question. I'm intersex.
Il gender non è Europa.
Some cultures have acknowledged more than 2 genders for thousands of years. Trans people exist. Trans kids exist in your school.
The gender debate has become a political issue. There's talk of a culture war, of left-wing woke ideology. But is this really a modern phenomenon? On the contrary, a look at history shows that many cultures have long recognized more than 2 genders. The topic is anything but new. We won't resolve the conflict with this video, but we can help you better understand the discussion. How is gender defined? In which countries is a third gender officially recognized? And which indigenous cultures have their own ideas about gender roles?
So, just going a little bit back to see. So the question is, what if there have always been more than 2 genders? And that's what I just explained before. There was always more than 2 genders. But with colonization and a European religious point of view, they started to have just 2 genders. And let's see how they explain this question. But a lot of other cultures have already 2 genders, or not 2, more than 2 genders.
gender gets thrown around a lot and is often used interchangeably with the word sex, which is where the confusion often begins. The two words, in fact, have distinct meanings. Sex refers to a person's biological sex, i.e., physical characteristics. Gender describes social gender, socially defined roles, expectations, and identities. This distinction between sex and gender became established in the middle of the 20th century. And although some people still don't differentiate, major governments, legal systems, and agencies do. The World Health Organization, for instance, has decided on the following definitions. Sex refers to the different biological and physiological characteristics of males and females, such as reproductive organs, chromosomes, hormones, etc. Gender refers to the socially constructed norms that impose and determine power, roles, and relationships between women, men, boys, girls, and trans and gender-diverse people, including people with non-binary gender identities. Gender norms, roles, and relations vary from society to society and evolve over time. And that's where it gets really interesting. Gender.
Exactly. So, for example, just from my point of view, gender was a journey to figure out. Because when we're growing up in a binary system. So we learn about woman and man. So, of course, I was identifying myself as a man because I have an older brother, I have a father, and I was more recognized to them and also see myself with them. But my mind was completely female, and I never was thinking, okay, I don't fit the general box of a man, of the behavior, how they treating women, how they are behaving in general, like this masculinity and all that stuff. This was not something I could relate really good to. So, and then of course I was identifying myself as a gay person and growing up as a gay man. And then when the gender topic came up, and I was going more into politics and all that stuff, go more in the interest of my own community as the LGBTQAI plus community, and see when this popped up with non-binary, and then I researched, it's like, oh, what does it mean? What is this term exactly identifying something? And for me it was clear, I'm non-binary, 100%. Because even people saying that I looks too masculine to being non-binary, it's like non-binary, it's actually a term to use if you are not feeling in the space of female and male. And this is what I experienced for myself. I'm using all the terms. If someone calls me a woman, they call me a man, and whatever. This is, for me, I don't care about it. But of course I get recognized as a man and as a male character. So I know that I have a certain privilege with that. But in the same time, my own identity and how I clarify myself, it's preserved to me. And this is something nobody can get rid of me, because it's how I feel. And this feeling, and this is how I grew up, how my mental status is also, that I was always more relatable to women. I never had any context that I have a relation in my mind with a man in general, because the behaviors and how they grew up and this environment, I was never part of it. I was always in a women's circle. I always had most likely women as friends, and I have a really hard time to get into this man environment for myself. Just the explanation here. And then when I figured out the term non-binary was like, no, this is fitting 100% to myself. And since then, if I fill something out, I always put non-binary over there, and I, when I'm talking or presenting, I try to. But I'm also not offended. I'm not this kind of person. I'm not offended if someone is seeing my physical body and saying I'm a man. I don't care about that. But I understand it when this kind of reviewing can be really harmful for other people, because they want to recognize as a certain gender. And for me, this is completely agreeable, because if you get misgendered it can be really harmful for your mental health and all this kind of issues what it's creating, because it's not opting out your physical body to this what you are feeling with. And I mean, this is always everything is about images, about feelings, and how our mental state is relating to that. So, and that's why I don't need to justify if I'm non-binary or not. It just, you can accept it or not. I don't care about that. And if I get recognized as a non-binary person and people are being aware of that, I'm appreciating it. So, and I had already encounters with someone. They saw my Instagram and then they was asking me about my pronouns, and then I was like, my pronouns is he, she, they. So if you want to use any pronouns, it's up to you. And but this was really relieving, because it's people are being polite with you and trying to understand it. And this is the only thing what people want. Understand point of view that you are seeing me as a person.
Roles are not set in stone, they change. Let's take a closer look. First, an overview of the global situation. The legal recognition of more than two genders is regulated differently from country to country. In most places, there's no official third option in documents, but some countries have changed their laws since the early 2010s. Every country regulating recognition differently. How can you keep track of it all?
In our Western European culture, this binary gender system is more prevalent and has been for a relatively long time. But it's different in non-European cultures.
For more on that, let's look back at history.
I really believe there's been a great diversity of gender and sexuality on all continents, that all societies have integrated it. There are 800 local languages in Papua New Guinea, and in each of those languages there are terms for something between man and woman, and they're not even discriminatory. They don't place value judgments on it at all.
Long before our modern gender debate, indigenous communities had their own concepts of gender roles and identities. Here are some examples.
When I see the artifacts in the in the museum in Germany was like, I hope they are not stolen, because there are still artifacts stolen from Africa being in museums in Europe, and they should be back in a national museum in their home country. But this is the other topic.
In Juchitán, a city in the Mexican state of Oaxaca, there's still a large Muxe community today, a tradition celebrated even before colonization. The Muxes are a recognized third gender among the Zapotec people in Oaxaca, who maintain traditional dress, the Zapotec language, and other cultural traditions. Zapotec culture dates to the 6th century, and Muxes have always been a part of it. Once a year, a big festival is held in their honor.
Es una fiesta de la diversidad, es una fiesta de resistencia, es color, es luz y es una celebración a la vida también.
Muxes are usually assigned male at birth and take on traditionally female roles, but they cannot simply be equated with the Western concept of transgender. Their identity is culturally unique and closely linked to the Zapotec community.
Nosotras desde muy temprana edad identificamos nuestro lado femenino. Nos vestimos a los 10, 12, 13 años de mujeres. Y en la currícula escolares, en el sistema educativo, nosotras ya no podemos acceder a una escuela secundaria vestidas como mujeres. Por lo tanto, desercimos de la escuela.
Before colonization, early pre-Columbian civilizations had concepts of gender identity that went beyond the binary. That changed with the arrival of the conquistadors and Christian missionaries.
I believe religion does indeed play a major role, that the Christian religion has dictated and destroyed a great deal with its moral concepts. And it's the way power is exercised, of course. It really is the case that the binary is a tool of power.
Although Mexico has now legally recognized a third gender, the Muxes still encounter violence and discrimination in everyday life.
También se dice que en el Istmo de Tehuantepec es el paraíso Muxe, ¿no? Cuando realmente no lo es, porque también existe discriminación, existe la violencia y aún se falta trabajar mucho, ¿no? Para eliminar todo este tipo de tratos que hay hacia nosotras, ¿no?
Que estamos luchando por esto, para ser reconocidas, para ser aceptadas. Que en México, que en estas regiones, por lo menos Juchitán, ya estemos no al 100%, hasta esto todavía. Así, aquí hacemos fiestas, aquí hacemos eventos, aquí hacemos trabajos. Aún seguimos siendo como que discriminadas.
Like the Muxes, similar communities in other parts of the world are also fighting for greater social recognition, despite their centuries-old history. A look at South Asia shows this clearly. Non-binary gender identities have a long tradition in Hindu society. There are references to what are called hijras in scriptures dating back over 2,000 years. Hijra is a term used in Hindi and other South Asian languages to describe a distinct third gender identity, neither strictly male nor female. Today, hijra is often used to refer to intersex or transgender people, but this falls short. Not all intersex or transgender people identify as hijra, and vice versa.
Transgender is gender identity, hijra is a tradition. So we need to understand the thing clearly.
Modern concepts of gender fluidity do not necessarily coincide with traditional views in indigenous cultures. Traditionally, hijras are associated with the Hindu goddess Bahuchara Mata, a goddess of fertility and purity. They were regarded as spiritual mediators and bestowers of blessings, and they were even worshipped as demigods in many regions. In the Mughal Empire, hijras often held high social positions. That changed drastically with British colonial rule. In 1871, hijras in India were classified as criminals by law, lost many rights, and were increasingly pushed to the margins of society.
And this what I meant on the beginning, that so much violence came with colonization, and we still have laws created in this time where we discriminate other people in our society. Even the societies before colonization was accepted. And I don't understand, or I understand. Okay, let's paraphrase it differently. I understand where it's coming from, and I understand that we are still believing it, because after colonization we never had a time where we are clearly had right of the colonized country to being accepted and trying to figure out our history, because our history was partially erased, and the structure in schools and societies we had was forced by colonizers, and what kind of books, what a kind of education we have, and all these kind of things. So that's why we have still in major countries where they was colonized some parts where, for example, in Gambia, I'm half Gambian, that my sister was now there. In Gambia there are beach districts just for white people, or for hotel district what the own Gambian people can't use, because it's part of the hotel, and they are, as a citizen of the country, are not allowed to go on this beach. You also have this in Brazil. You have this kind of environment in other places around the world where the tourism take place and having holding privileges for white people to access, or lighter skinned people to access their property in their country, because they are stolen and the property are owned by a hotel or other environmental people who got this stolen land in and passed by in centuries by their family. So, and that we still have this suffering of the LGBTQAI plus community around the world is a systemic issue, because it took place in colonization of debating with Christianity that we just have male and female as gender, and we as a society still need to learn the history of our own countries to get unlocked that there was a place before colonization that had more social concept and more a working society before colonization themselves.
Almost 150 years later, Bangladesh officially recognized hijras as a third gender. India's Supreme Court followed suit. Hopes this would improve their living conditions were high.
उन्होंने कहा किसी भी देश का उन्नति और डेवलपमेंट उसके ह्यूमन राइट्स से है, उनके इंसानों के हक से है. आज मर्द, औरत और थर्ड सेक्स या थर्ड जेंडर को, किन्नरों को बहुत बड़ा हक दिया गया है, मानवीय अधिकार का हक दिया गया है.
Despite legal progress, social stigmatization remains a challenge, even a decade after official recognition.
আমি যে বাড়িতে থাকতাম আমার উপর অ্যাটাক করা হয়েছিল মাঝরাতে এবং সামহাও আমি ওই অ্যাটেম্পটাকে আমি সার্ভাইভ করে যাই এবং তারপরে আরও একটা প্লটিং হয়েছিল আমাকে অ্যাসাসিনেট করার জন্য অনেক জায়গাতে আছে আমি রাস্তা দিয়ে যখন হাঁটছি আমি কোনো দোকানে যাচ্ছি তো অনেকে মনে করে বুঝতে পারি যে আমি একটা ট্রান্সজেন্ডার মেয়ে তো মনে করে যে আমি হয়তো টাকা উঠাইতে গেছি চাঁদা করতে গেছি বা এরকম কোনো কিছু এবং রাস্তা দিয়ে হাঁটতে গেলেও অনেক ধরনের হেনস্থার শিকার হতে হয় বুলিংয়ের শিকার হতে হয়.
But hijras and mushes are by no means the only people who have historically challenged the binary gender system.
Es gibt sehr viele Kulturen in Nordamerika.
There are many cultures in North America, Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, in Polynesia, in Siberia, or among the Inuit in the Arctic, where, for example, if a family had no sons to go hunting, daughters were brought up as boys. And then they also had a special status as hunters in their families. That means that in non-European cultures there are very many, and I think also very old traditions of systems of more than just two genders.
I mean, now they recognize a lot of third gender from the Latin community, North American community, and Asian community, but there was also third gender in the African community. So, because in Nigeria, for example, the Queen Nzinga had a harem with a lot of trans people around her queendom, and for me, this is a huge backlash. Or for me, it's a little bit sad, because when I try to figure out that every continent had some recognition there, we also have in Europe some part, more likely East Europe, that they had recognition of third gender. But with the mild powers of Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, France, Spain, and all that, this was erased. So, and homophobia or transphobia is coming from this kind of places that they try to erase also history. And that's why we have also, since Africa is so exploited by and was so harshly being attacked by colonizers, that the recognition of old tradition is sometimes it's almost erased, but we have still a lot. But there was no kind of things that we can write it down, or that we had the knowledge for keeping it. It was just mouth to mouth, and still the people trying to figure out still the cultures, and they try to evaluate it and being more into it, because they were strong to holding up their culture. And I just want to mention here that there are third cultures, or third genders in the African context as well. Not just the other continent, but in Africa as well, because I knew there was one in Madagascar, and in other parts around Africa, there are definitely third genders as well.
Gender roles are not set in stone. Their manifestations are as diverse as the reasons for accepting or questioning them. Even in Europe, there are old traditions that break with gender norms. In the Balkans, for instance, there's the centuries-old tradition of the Borneshas. These sworn virgins formally take on male identities in order to live according to the societal rules for men. One of the last Borneshas lives in isolation in northern Albania.
Bornesh vënosa mua bo, se na përpara ishim shumë të varfën, edhe nuk kishte kush për një mua nanës teme. Na ishim atë na 6 fëmijë, vllavi ma ka vdek, motra e madhe është martua, atë na baba am kanë moshën 23 vjeçë, kur baba më ka vdek, atë na vënosa, bona Bornesh për me një mua ata.
The practice of Borneshas goes back to the medieval common law of what was called kanun, in which men were traditionally placed above women. But Borneshas were an exception. They were able to break out of the patriarchal structures.
Zgjedhja për të bërë Bornesh sigurisht që është shumë e respektuar, shumë e nderuar dhe vlerësuar, të themi, për faktin se një vajzë që heq dorë nga jeta e saj, nga jeta normale e një gruaje, që heq dorë nga funksioni i saj si grua për të martuar, për të patur një familje, për të patur fëmijët e saj, sigurisht është sakrifica më sublime që mund të bëjë dikush.
For centuries, becoming a sworn virgin was the only way for a woman to become the head of a family or to avoid an unwanted marriage.
Zgjedhja për të qenë burnesh nuk ka të bëjë fare në asnjë rast me seksualitetin, thjesht për të patur një status tjetër në shoqërinë e një periudhe të caktuar historiko-kulturore.
As the social status of women in Albania has changed, this tradition has become less important. As we said a while back, gender norms, roles, and relations vary from society to society and evolve over time. And that's exactly what's happened here. Today, only a handful of Borneshas still live in Albania. Okay, so what have we learned? Diverse gender roles have been negotiated in traditional indigenous cultures. Comments.
Nice, thank you. I definitely learned something because some genders I didn't knew, like the gender in Albania or the from Bangladesh and India I knew. Musha I knew as well when I did my own research, and I also have 3 reels on my YouTube channel where you can have a look in. They're quite a little bit older, but where I have a timeline where you have, or not a timeline, but the words for the third gender in the African context, in the Latin American context, and in the Asian context. If you want to have a look, there are 3 separate reels where you can look on it, or on my social media you can see them as well. And if you are interested to see the differences from the cultures. So I found it pretty awesome. It was super nice. If you liked it as well, a thumb up would be amazing. And also if you see that and you know about your own culture, what it's not mentioned in the video, share it with us. It would be really appreciated in the comments if we highlight more third gender in your own community to get recognized as well. And of course, if you didn't subscribe my channel yet, I would appreciate that as well, because you are growing my YouTube channel, and I can do more of those kind of things more permanently if I in the future make also money with YouTube. It would be amazing, and you would assist me with this if you subscribe and watching my videos. So for now, I wish you a good afternoon, good morning, or a good night. It's depending when you're watching this video, and make you a hot coffee, a tea, or a hot chocolate. See you and bye bye.